Welcome back for another waiver wire episode. I'm going to go ahead and get straight into it. Don't need to spend too much time on the guys that are highly rostered because many managers can't get them. So let's kick it off with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, rostered in 77% of leagues. Now, if he was on your bench just last week, do not feel bad. That was the right move. Now, Bill has established himself as the lead back, and what's even better is this next month is just glorious matchups. He'll likely be ranked as a top 24 running back for me rest of season. Michael Carter of the Arizona Cardinals. I told you guys constantly in my YouTube lives that Carter will be the starter. He got most of the carries, and even that exceeded most of my expectations. 23 touches in week 5, tough matchup in week 6, but he'll surely get the volume again until Trey Benson comes back. Now you'll see the list as well. It's not alphabetical, it's not by roster percentage, it's how I would prioritize picking them up in my fantasy. Woody Marks for the Houston Texans. It was a bad game for Marks, but the Ravens had an even worse game. We knew the matchup was awesome for Marks, but it was too good. So good that Marks didn't even have a single opportunity in the fourth quarter. The game script didn't require for them to throw the ball to him whatsoever, but the process was right. The matchup just got flipped on its head immediately. He's still this high in my rankings because I'm looking long term, and if you'd rather take a shot on one of these other guys instead of Woody Marks, I totally get that. Just understand that they might be rentals. Rachaad White, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very inefficient with his touches, but volume is king. And he got volume. 18 touches is pretty awesome versus the Seahawks. Now, Bucky Irving is expected to miss the next 2 weeks, possibly more, with a bye week for the Bucs in week 9. So there's a possibility you get Rachaad White for week 6, 7, and 8. So if you need additional spot starts and maybe, possibly, some additional work on those later weeks, I would be fine grabbing Rachaad White over Woody Marks. And Rico Dowdle of the Carolina Panthers. Most rushing yards in a game for any running back so far this season, 206 rushing yards, absolutely demolished the Dolphins, and now he gets an even easier matchup versus the Cowboys. And now you may be wondering why he's my 5th ranked running back here on the week, but that's because of Chuba Hubbard. Right now, currently, he's day-to-day. He may play in week 6. Now, if Hubbard doesn't play, Rico Dowdle is an absolute slam dunk, but we won't know as waivers go. If nothing else, Dowdle has certainly carved out a bigger role in this offense. So could he be part of the game plan? Possibly. If nothing else, you're spinning up on a high-end handcuff. And a few more running backs here. I have Ramondre Stevenson. Again, he's highly rostered. But face it, we love Travion Henderson, but if the Patriots don't love him, which it doesn't seem that they do, not going to get as much run. Stevenson is the starter. Now, Antonio Gibson did go out with a season-ending knee injury, which should give Stevenson and Henderson some more playing time, making Henderson more of a buy low, but Stevenson should still be the guy who started over both of them. Now, just bundle these next two together. Kamani Vidal, Hassan Haskins. Marion Hampton is out on IR with an ankle injury. Means he's going to miss the next 4 games. This could very well be a 1-2 punch with Vidal, Haskins, and it's not good for anybody. Now, if I were to bet on one, it would be Kamani Vidal. Vidal is a second-year running back who saw flashes just last season, so I'm expecting some chunk plays and certainly the receiving work. He's a much better pass catcher than Hassan Haskins. Now, Haskins, on the other end, profiles more as a short yardage and goal line back. It's an absolutely phenomenal matchup in Week 6 versus the Dolphins, the ones I just talked about, Rico Dowdle destroying. On to the wide receivers. Now, Matthew Golden, he is highly rostered, but if you could stash him and hope for that second half rookie breakout, I certainly would. Romeo Doubs. Now, both Packers are on here. They dropped because of people during the bye week, so I understand that. But don't forget, Doubs did just have a 3-touchdown game right before the bye. As of right now, it's probably going to be some wide receiver, tight end, mixed in carousel between who's going to have a good week. But Romeo Doubs very well could be the most consistent one out of all of them. Now, Josh Downs just had his best game of the season, but that's not saying much. It's 6 catches for 54 yards. It's still a stash unless you've got a deeper starting roster. Trey Tucker. Again, he's on the waiver wire segment. It's mainly because he's playing 90% of the snaps, and it's any given week where he could just have an explosive game. But for what it's worth, the Raiders have to come back, and it seems like every single game. Kendrick Bourne. A lot of things went right for Kendrick Bourne. All the other pass catchers were seemingly out, and his old Patriot teammate, Mac Jones, was playing quarterback. It's uncertain right now on Tuesday if Brock Purdy or Pearsall or Kittle or who's going to miss here for the 49ers. But if it happens to be Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones again, we see some of the other pass catchers out, I'm okay with firing up Kendrick Bourne. Now, going on to tight ends, Darren Waller comes in at number 1. Tyreek is out for the season, and Waller found the end zone yet again. He looked awesome in this game as well versus the Panthers. He's still at just 58% of the snaps, so he's going to continue to get ramped up more and more into the offense. And don't forget, Jonnu Smith, just last season, was the tight end 4 in this same exact offense. Theo Johnson. I mentioned him just last week being Jackson Dart's favorite target. He had a 25% target share in week 4, Dart's first start. In week 5, he had 6 catches for 33 yards and a pair of touchdowns. The big physical tight end with Darius Slayton possibly sidelined on the short week notice versus the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. I love Theo Johnson this week. Mason Taylor came out in week 5, had 9 receptions on 12 targets for 67 yards. Getting worked more and more into the offense. I wouldn't expect Justin Fields to be throwing it 40 plus times a game, but Mason looks like the second receiving option behind Garrett Wilson and maybe sometimes Breece Hall. David Njoku. I talked about starting no Browns receiving weapons because we didn't know who Dillon Gabriel was going to throw to, plus it was a very tough Vikings defense. Turns out, Dillon Gabriel loved throwing to his tight ends, especially David Njoku. He's highly rostered, but those people who do have him rostered or have the ability to get him should find some optimism with Dillon Gabriel. And Britton Strange. Now, he got injured on Monday Night Football, but if he plays on Sunday versus the Seahawks, he is an absolute smash play. The Seahawks are dead last against tight ends. Even Cade Otton, who's done absolutely nothing so far on the season, had 4 catches for 81 yards against them. Going on to a few other tight ends here for streaming options in week 6. Jake Tonges, 49ers tight end. Now, this one's a little situational. You need George Kittle to be out, and right now he's trending to be out. He's eligible to come back from IR, but things aren't fully there just yet. So if Kittle's out and Tonges plays, he's had a couple of weeks of fantasy success, and I'm willing to go back to that well. It's nice that Jake Tonges gets to play Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay that A.J. Barner just beat up on. A.J. Barner makes the list as well. He's playing Jacksonville. Now you're chasing touchdowns just a little bit with him, but he's getting more targets as well. He's worth a deep add. Harold Fannin. Now I mentioned David Njoku and Dillon Gabriel's relationship, but Harold Fannin had a decent amount of targets as well. More of the short area dink and dunk type of targets where Fannin hopefully can make a move afterwards. But it could change from week to week. It just does seem like it is going to be the tight ends who benefit most from Dillon Gabriel being the quarterback. On to some streaming quarterbacks. Stafford. Matthew Stafford has looked great in back-to-back games. Now he plays Baltimore, who gave up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks so far in the season. And we just saw C.J. Stroud. Yes, C.J. Stroud, the one nobody's ever starting, beat up on these same Baltimore Ravens. Brock Purdy or Mac Jones. I'm cool with either one of these guys. It just depends on who's available in your league. But whoever suits up, I'd love to start them against the Bucs. The Bucs give up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. We've seen multiple shootouts versus the Bucs. Jackson Dart versus the Eagles. Now, the Eagles matchup isn't as bad as you think. They're middle of the pack versus quarterbacks. And Jackson Dart's rushing ability keeps his floor kind of decent. He's not a must start, but in deeper leagues, I'm willing to throw him into the lineups. Now, Bryce Young versus the Dallas Cowboys. If you play him, you've got to look away. Now, it's an absolute cake matchup, but he had a cake matchup last week, and he did not deliver. For what it's worth, Dallas has given up these fantasy finishes for quarterbacks. The quarterback 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8. Do with that information what you will. And last but not least, let's go ahead to some streaming defenses. My number 1 favorite defense this week is the Patriots versus the Saints. Now, it's not just the Patriots versus the Saints. It's a multi-week option. They face the Saints, Titans, Browns, and Falcons, all of which are 7th or worse in offensive points per game. If I had to pay for them knowing this information, knowing I'd get them for multiple weeks, I'd be willing to spend up just a little bit more. Browns versus the Steelers and the Steelers versus the Browns. I'd obviously prefer the Steelers versus the Browns and a rookie quarterback, but the Browns defense is still pretty good. The lowest over-under of the week at 38.5 points. I'd expect this one to be a real defensive battle between the two teams. Seahawks versus the Jags. The Seahawks have 7 interceptions in 5 games, and Trevor Lawrence has looked better. He looked better on Monday Night Football especially, but he still has 5 turnovers in 5 games. The Seahawks defense, when healthy, can make some plays. And last but not least, I have the Colts versus the Cardinals. We've seen the Cardinals week after week beat themselves up. The Colts are favored in this one, and Kyler Murray hasn't put up over 220 passing yards or 19 fantasy points all season long. So this seems like an extremely safe play. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I'm going live each and every single day, dropping waiver videos, rankings, and tier list each and every single week. So again, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when I go live, and I'll see you in the next live stream.